Healing from trauma is about reconnection. It's about bringing your mind and your body back online with each other so they feel aligned. It's about being able to feel safe just being in this world without having to throw up these defense mechanisms. It's not a place I'm trying to get to. It's actually coming back into myself.
Welcome to It's Both. I'm Nikki P., a therapist turned storyteller, and this channel is for people living in the tension, mixed emotions, messy transitions, and rebuilding your identity without toxic positivity. Today, we are talking with trauma expert and survivor Janice Holland about how to heal your past while building a future that you actually want. So in the next hour, you'll learn what trauma really is. Hint, it's not the event, it's your body's response. The 4 stress responses, especially Fawn, we'll hear more about that in a minute, and how to spot yours. Simple somatic ways to expand your window of tolerance without re-traumatizing yourself. And compassionate boundary scripts for holidays and family. Plus, we'll talk about why performing your healing keeps you stuck, and a 60-second daily reset that you can start tonight. If that resonates with you, hit subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And with that, let's jump in. Janice, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Excited to be here.
It's so good to see you, and I think you are the first guest that has been on a second time.
That's so exciting. What an honor. I'm excited.
So I'm excited, and I'm extra excited because we're talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is trauma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Funny. I realized as I say that, I'm like, that's an odd thing to say, but it's true. I think understanding trauma has sort of been my, I don't say life's goal, but that has been years and years of me in the process of trying to understand my own trauma. And so anyway, I'm excited for us to talk today.
Yeah. Well, that's I talk about it all day, every day. So I'm the same. I love it when I find somebody else who I can chat with about this because it's kind of my world. So
Before we jump into that, I know some listeners who have heard at the beginning of this first season know a little bit about you, but for those that don't, can you tell us a little bit about who Janice is?
sure. So I am a licensed therapist through the state of Texas, and I am also a trauma survivor. In my 20s, I really began a really intense journey of healing and discovering and trying to figure out how to move on and heal from the experiences that I had. Through that, I went through a lot of different therapists and realized that therapists just aren't really very well trained. I was just getting more and more confused and hurt as I was trying to seek support and help. And so I decided to go back and go to school and kind of learn for myself. So anyway, and now I'm 2 decades in and am a certified trauma therapist. I'm certified through the Ross Institute, and I have a private practice. And I also do a lot of teaching and training for other therapists. It's kind of my way of trying to help the collective understand trauma. And I also love to teach and train just population in general, because I think it's something that everybody can relate to. We've all been through really hard, adverse things, some people more than others, obviously. And it's just a way to understand yourself. So I'm really passionate about getting to do that.
And you taught and trained me. You were my
That's
supervisor.
right. I did. Yes, I did. Yeah, we go way back. Yeah. So it's always fun to reconnect with you, especially because it's been fun to watch you grow over the years.
So talk to us a little bit about, I think the word trauma, I know I use it a lot. I know people in general, it's becoming a much more common term, right? Like you hear people pretty frequently talk about having gone through trauma. And I think historically for me and probably the general population, when we think about trauma, I think we think about big T trauma, which therapists say this a lot, big T and little t. Maybe you can explain that too. But for those that think about it, I think historically we've always thought about trauma as this massive life event. You've been through something really horrific. And those obviously are traumas, but there's a lot of other trauma that can exist. So can you talk to us a little bit about what do we mean by trauma and how does that show up for people?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, because I have found that people who are not really that connected with the mental health world. If you ask them if have you been to trauma or have you been through trauma or experienced trauma, most will say no, absolutely not. And it's understandable because, like you said, most people think of it as a major life event, which obviously it includes that, but it's really trauma is not an event itself. And when I do the trainings, I go into schools and help schools be trauma informed as well, teachers and administrators. And when I explain to them, I'm like, Nicole, if you and I are in a car and we get in a car accident, for me, that could be a very traumatic event. And
Mm,
for you, you could be like, well, that sucks. And it shakes you up, but you would not consider it trauma. And neither one of us are wrong. So trauma is not an event itself. It's what happens inside of us as a result of an event. So for me, if that had been a trauma, it's likely because I have a history that is connected to a similar experience. Maybe I had been in several car accidents before. Maybe, I had a relative or somebody that I love who passed away from a car accident, or like there's some sort of history with car accidents.
mhm,
But if I get in one, it's like the tipping point, and something happens inside of me where I cannot calibrate for safety. I
mm.
disconnect from myself. I disconnect from feeling like I have choice. So it's what happens inside our bodies when an event happens. So we can't really tell anybody that they have or have not been through trauma because there's no way for us to know or understand their entire history or what they've been taught or how they've been raised or the level of safety that they've been able to build within themselves. So if you're in a home that looks really normal,
Mhm,
but there hasn't been a lot of real connecting emotional support and you feel kind of isolated and lonely, then you're going to be more susceptible to not being able to an event causing you to not feel safe. So it could be a teacher, you feel like a teacher doesn't like you. It could be like all of
mm,
these, some would consider micro or small t events, but
mhm,
you have this underlying pervasive feeling of I'm not safe, then anything that threatens your survival or your connection, because as mammals, as humans, we have to have connection to feel whole and complete, a sense of belonging. So
yeah,
anytime
yeah.
that sense of belonging or that connection is ever threatened, then it's going to activate our stress response system. Does that make
So
sense?
how do you it does make sense, and I'm even just thinking, how would somebody who's not as aware of these things, how do you know if it's a trauma then? So, like, let's use that example, you and I are in a car accident. At what point do you start to realize my body I loved what you said, my body isn't calibrating for safety, which I feel like that should be on a T-shirt. But, yeah, like, is it within 24 hours? Is it within a week? Like, at what point how do you start to determine if your body is not calibrating for safety
Yeah, that's a
and
great
decide if you've been through trauma?
That's a great question. So that is going to be a little bit different for each person. And that is where the nuance of what we call big T, and big T is just like a major event, a natural disaster, sexual abuse, or something really big
Mhm.
that everybody would be like, yes, that's trauma.
Mm,
Right. So if you have a big major event like that, like, for example, I was working in a school. They had a student who was on vacation and passed away when he was on vacation with his family. And so they brought me in to help the school
mm,
manage, bring in some support for their staff and their students.
yeah.
And for a major event like that, somebody who's really close to you who dies, and then you're looking at a good 3 to 4 months of just kind of not feeling like yourself. Obviously, it's going to last longer than that, but after 3 or 4 months, you generally can get through your day and feel generally regulated more times than not. Again, I don't even like to put specific time because if somebody's
Yeah.
like, well, it's been 5 months, or if it's your own child, obviously it's going to be longer than that. I'm just saying in
Mhm.
general. But if it's something that, going back to the car accident for you who does, as an example, if you don't have a history with a car accident, it should be just a few days. And then like maybe you're still upset because it's going to cost a lot of money and it's a money stressor for you or something like that. But you're going to be able to generally feel safe and not feel
Mhm.
anxious and overwhelmed as you move through the day. But if you're somebody who is identifying that you feel anxious most of the day, you feel overwhelmed most of the day, you feel like you're overthinking. You're like, these are all, and as we talk, we're kind of get into some of those signals that are like, okay, you have a pervasive sense of not feeling safe.
Hmm.
And even if you can't identify one event that caused that, it could be a series of a lot of events over time that have created lack of safety, a feeling like you're not safe. And we can break that down a little bit more, but the biggest aha and shift for me and all the additional training that I've done is that initially when I was seeking help and support for myself. I was seeking, like, I'm broken and I need to be fixed. I am shattered and I need to be put back together. I was seeing it as um, a destination I needed to get to, if that makes sense, instead of understanding that trauma creates disconnection. I'm not connected to myself. I don't feel safe with myself. I don't feel like I have choice. I don't feel like I have agency. And so healing from trauma is about reconnection. It's about bringing your mind and your body back online with each other so they feel aligned. It's about being able to feel safe just being in this world without having to throw up these defense mechanisms. So it's not a place I'm trying to get to. It's actually coming back into myself.
Which is such a huge shift. Even that in itself is such a big shift. And one of the reasons I think I also said I love talking about trauma is because I think this has given me language, understanding this, obviously talking to you for so many years, going through your group. I mean, all these things have helped me understand what I have tried to articulate for years. And you've heard me and others, like on past episodes, have heard me talk about this idea of personally feeling so disconnected. And a lot of women, especially, you cognitively know what emotion you're feeling and why. And I can even say, well, this is why. And like so and so said this and it triggered this, but my body doesn't feel it. And I have a really hard time allowing my body to connect to those things. And so this shift for me has been a huge aha moment because I've gone, oh my gosh, yes, like this is what I've been trying to articulate for so much of my life. And it makes me think about, when we go through trauma, we've got, or when you're kind of faced with a traumatic experience or something in your nervous system that is, quote, scary, there are typically four ways that you can respond to that. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about what each of those are and how they show up? Because I feel like fawn is a newer one that not as many people know about.
Yeah, you're right. So these are the basic stress responders that our body activates. So it like overrides our mind and our body activates in order to keep us safe. So the fight response would be like a bear. If a bear feels scared, it's not going to lay down like an opossum. It's going to stand up on its hind legs and attack. It's going to go, right? So some people again, we can use all of these in different situations, but typically what I found when I'm working with people is they have one that they're most comfortable leaning on. So somebody who's in the fight mode, like you're defensive quite often, you're irritable. People may describe you as controlling. Your body is saying, I need power to feel safe. I need to feel powerful to stay safe, right? So again, it's all about safety. The bottom line is I'm trying to make myself feel safe. So if you have a boss who's a complete asshole and very aggressive, like that sucks and it's not okay. But, they're just trying to keep themselves safe,
Mm-hmm.
or a parent or whomever, like whoever it is, a partner, if they are acting in a very aggressive manner, then they're in a fight mode. And what's underneath that is somebody who's scared and doesn't feel safe. And so they go into attack mode versus flight mode. People who are in flight mode, they run. It's like a gazelle, a deer. They take off running when there's danger or they don't feel
Mm-hmm.
safe.
Yeah.
So flight mode people stay very busy. They're on the go all the time. They don't feel comfortable sitting still. They need to be active. They are typically anxious. They are overworking. They are workaholics typically.
Hmm.
What their body is saying, I need distance. I need to move to stay safe. Being still makes me a target. Right. So, and again, that's not conscious. This is all with like the
Yeah.
settled into the body, the belief system that's settled into the body. So that's if you're like, oh crap, I do all of that, then that's a sign that you are like what we call stuck in this stress response state, which means you've been through enough experience. Either you had one really big, overwhelming experience, or you've had a series of smaller events over a long period of time
Mm-hmm.
that it's caused you to not be able to settle back out of your stress response. So, and there's two more. The freeze response is, it would be like an opossum where you just kind of freeze and you feel numb, you feel stuck, you feel disconnected. Basically, the body has decided, I can't win, so I'm just going to disappear. And so that's somebody also, like if your boss asks you a question and you're like kind of like a deer in headlights, or you can't
Mm-hmm.
think of what to say. I see this a lot with students. Like they know the answer, they get ready to take a test, but they show up and they can't remember anything they studied. That's the freeze response. That's your stress response activating. Typically, there's a lot of pressure. If I don't score well, my parents are going to be mad at me. I'm going to, and so their body can't calibrate for safety. And so they stay stuck in that stress response. And
I
then,
also think of, for
go
that
ahead.
one, I'm thinking of like football players or those in the Olympics. Like you see somebody who's just, is an incredible athlete, and they get to the moment of the Olympics, the final race or whatever, and they mess up. It's like so unlike them, but they freeze.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a perfect example. So then another one that people don't typically know as much about is called the Fawn response. And it's basically, I can't assess for safety any other way except to try and make, like, I can't freeze. None of those feel safe. So what I'm going to do is try to make you happy, and that will make me feel safe. So it's people pleasing. It's apologizing often. Like, I'm sorry for everything. If you say I'm sorry a lot, or you're over accommodating, you take care of others' needs and you are uncomfortable expressing your own needs. You are uncomfortable receiving gifts. You only like to give and do things for others. Basically, the body is saying, I will make them happy. I make other people happy to keep myself safe.
This one sounds familiar to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, exactly. It could also kind of be referred to as Stockholm syndrome. Some people are familiar with that. So yeah, it's quite common, very common, especially in women, I find, and because it's kind of socially conditioned in us to
Hmm.
behave in that way as well.
Yeah, I was even just thinking, I mean, I know it's not the topic of what we're talking about, but I'm even thinking about in American culture, especially in like the Southern Bible Belt, and this idea of women and coming out of, purity culture and very like evangelical types of Christianity. I feel like you're almost trained to respond in this way, right? If my husband, who is the leader, says something, even if I don't want to do it, I'm going to appease him because it is my job to appease him. So anyway, yeah, so many connections to Fawn. And I don't think we talk about it enough because, I might not, for me, how it shows up is like, I might not apologize all the time, but I have noticed when there's situations where there's conflict or somebody is unhappy, I jump in. I'm like trying to smile and be silly and make a joke, and like I'm just like trying to save the situation or save myself or make somebody, including myself and others, like I just want everybody to be comfortable. And like the anxiety in me shows up in that way, and I'm just like, let's just make everybody comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean you're right. It's so common and it's so socially conditioned, and we accepted it and we engage in it because as kids in the Bible Belt, that is how I stayed safe as a little girl, is by
Hmm.
smiling and wearing a cute dress and making sure people were happy and saying yes ma'am and no sir, and I'm being a good girl, right? And that it's just and that I wasn't allowed to be myself, which in itself is a form of a trauma. And so I had to engage this stress response to feel like I belong and to stay safe, because I was
Yeah.
not acceptable to not be that way, and it's not just me, it's most girls who grew up in that environment.
So how do we, because a lot of, wanted us to talk about trauma because I also wanted us to get to this idea of the bothness around this, which is like, how do you heal from the past while also building a future and becoming something new? Not becoming something new. That's probably not the right language, but focusing on building who you are and like reconnecting to yourself. And those feel, somewhat contradictory. There is a tension in the bothness and past versus present versus future. And so when we're thinking about that context, how do you expand your window of tolerance without re-traumatizing yourself? And window of tolerance is like such a psychology focused word, so or term. And so maybe I should frame it like this, like how do you build your own internal capacity to move out of these old ways while also not overwhelming your currently overwhelmed
Right.
nervous system?
Yeah. Yeah. This can be really tricky and it's not a simple answer. So I will kind of break it down into pieces.
Mhm.
First of all, you're right. It's not about, I heard on this podcast, and I wish I could tell you which one it was so I could give them credit. I don't remember, but she was saying that she read about Michelangelo, and he was saying when he creates a sculpture out of marble, he sees the figure and then he chips away what's not the figure.
Mm.
Healing is very much like that. Like, because when we don't feel safe, we put on these self-protective
Oh,
aspects
yeah.
to try and create safety, right? So I take on anxiety and overthinking so that I can try to predict what's going to happen to keep myself safe. Depression is the same thing. Like, I don't feel like I'm going to win, so I suppress myself. And it's so we have these, if you think of it like putting on these packs or layers around us to try and create safety. So healing from trauma is about chipping away those self-protective
Mm.
layers so that what is the authentic us feels safe enough to be seen. So we're in the process of doing that while if our true authentic self has been hiding in the dark behind protection our whole lives, then
Yeah.
the exposure is can be really overwhelming and can be hard and can induce a lot of
Mhm.
anxiety, tension, right? Because it feels scary, it feels vulnerable.
Yeah.
So trying to create the bothness of that can be challenging, and it's especially challenging for those of us who use performance as a form of safety. And what I mean by that is I keep myself safe by overachieving, by performing, by having a
Yeah.
version of myself that I know is socially acceptable that I display while I stay hidden in the background. Right. So when we are
Mhm.
operating in the world that way, we want to perform our way to healing. And
Oh,
so
that's me. I'm gonna perform my way all the way to being the perfect healed woman.
so it's like, first of all, just even understanding that, because for me, it took a long time to understand that, yeah, I was getting a lot of head knowledge. I was doing a lot of teaching and training. I
Mm.
was a good
Yeah.
therapist, but I still was performing. I wasn't being an authentic self. It looked authentic, and there were aspects of it that were authentic, but it wasn't because it felt too vulnerable for me to take that smart layer off and just expose me.
Oh, man. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because as you're talking about that, I'm going, oh, that's really I think that's really connective to a lot of other people. And even thinking now, I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. I connect a lot to what you're saying, and I would imagine others do too, in the sense that we want to perform, but is there also the sense because I feel like I can perform, but I can also be authentic in performing even though I'm not fully being myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so because of that, it's been hard for me personally to find my real self because I'm like, well, I'm not faking. Like, there's a difference between performing and faking. And so when I think of my own healing journey, I'm like, there's not often times where I've faked it, but there are a lot of times where I'm gonna hide the depth of it. I don't wanna show the depth of it, but I'll show just enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, performing is about giving. If you're standing in front of an audience singing,
Mm,
you're performing, you are showcasing, you're giving. So there is
yeah.
authenticity to it because it's from you, but you're not allowing you can't allow the energy to come back to you and receive when you're in this
Oh, yeah.
of giving, right? Where it's like, and there's the barrier of I'm on stage and you're in the audience.
Hmm.
It's not even necessary. That sounds a little narcissistic, but it's not like it's more
Yeah.
of you need that protective barrier of, like, for me, I needed the protective barrier of therapist, of teacher, of
Mhm.
trainer,
Mhm.
wanting to impart knowledge, but it's me sharing my knowledge, not me sharing me.
Yes. Okay. That makes a
Right.
lot of sense.
And that's appropriate with my clients. And that's
Yeah.
appropriate
Yeah.
when I'm in work mode. I should
Yeah.
be that. If I'm that in my personal life as well, I don't have
Mhm.
a way for me to be able to receive and can, like, because that's true connection.
Mhm.
Connection is being in a position with somebody where they don't have power over me and I don't have power over them. We're just on peer to peer, loving and connecting, vulnerable and authentic.
Yeah. So how do you start to take steps, even using my example or your example of, you're chipping away the layers to find what is there. Pair that with the example that I gave you, just to kind of give some context to how it might show up in somebody's life. And how would someone start to figure that out? So how do we start doing the chipping without overwhelming our nervous system and re-traumatizing ourselves?
Right. So and I think the way we did kind of chase a bit of a bunny trail here. And I think what
Yeah.
got me on that is understanding this aspect of performance and how it's showing up in your life.
Mhm.
Right. Without judging yourself and without, I mean, because remember, this is about self protection. You needed to protect yourself. There's no
Mhm.
reason you need to be angry, upset, or judge yourself for that.
Yeah.
Right. You figured out a really clever way to keep yourself safe. So starting with just the compassionate understanding of yourself. And then it's not really realistic to say, I want to run a marathon. I've never run a day in my life and I'm signing up for the marathon next week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is realistic to say, I'm going to sign up for the marathon a year from now. And I
Mhm.
understand that right now, I just need to go on a walk and start moving my body. And then I need to sign up and start lifting 5 pound weights so that by the time a year from now happens, I'm ready. So it's the same approach of the first thing I need to do is not just strip away all my self-protective layers, but first of all, identify what they are, at least most of them. And then who are some people I feel safe with now? And who are the people I really don't feel safe with right now? And how can I create safety? It's pointless to try and do anything if you can't feel safe. So the number one thing you have to do is create safety.
Mhm.
Am I a fight, flight, or freeze person, a fawn person? Those are I can identify what I do most of the time. What does it mean to feel safe?
Mhm.
You might need a therapist or a friend or somebody just to ask you some questions so you can find, like, what is the time when I felt like I could completely relax? Where was I? What
Mm.
was I doing? Who was I with? How can I
Yeah, yeah.
create complete relaxation? For me, when I was younger and had small kids, I would put them in the bed and go to the bathroom, lock the door, and take a bubble bath. And that is, I think, the warmth of the water on my body created a
Mm.
sensation of safety. And I didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time, but that's the only time when I became conscious of I need to create safety. That's what I was doing almost
Yeah.
every night, is creating a little cocoon of water that I could get in. And it was so hot. My husband at the time was like you're how can you tolerate it? It was hot water. But it's like I just felt so comforted.
Mm.
Like it was the sensation that I needed. And that's at the time really the only time I could feel safe.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then after that, you began practicing, okay, so who are some people? You're one of them, Nicole. You're one of the few people who knew the real me, who I
Mhm.
didn't have to perform with.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I remember talking to you about my mom and different people that I was trying to figure out how to have a relationship with them and how to heal from experiences with them. Like, so I just found people. And for me, for a long time, it was only one or two people that I could
Mhm.
have authentic, real conversations with. That I didn't have to sugarcoat it or try to protect the person I was talking about. I could just
Yeah.
say what I was thinking and feeling, right? So it's like if you think of it as building layers, just like you build muscles for training for an event, you're building your emotional
Mhm.
capacity to expose more and more of yourself, and you do it through first creating some safety by yourself
Mhm.
with some really safe people. Then you start practicing showing up authentically with maybe you need to set a boundary with your boss or tell a best friend no, or like just start practicing and playing with using your voice, being more genuine and authentic in your interactions.
That's so good. Would the question to ask yourself be, I'm like, okay, that makes so much sense. And I also know that for me, it was hard to know what was a layer and what was me because for so much of my life, and I'm saying this because I think to others it applies. For so much of my life, it has been about, yeah, being good or being seen as the one who brings joy or goodness and like the easy one, the easygoing one. And so some of that is so true to my personality, but it became so much of my identity in a way to appease those around me. It's hard to kind of, as I went through my own journey, it was hard to notice, well, what's a layer and what do I really like? Like, what if I just enjoy doing this versus am I responding out of trauma? So, is there a question that people can ask themselves to kind of assess? Am I responding out of a trauma response? Is this a layer or is this me?
Yeah, great question. So the way I like to help people is by focusing on desire. And desire is something that we're taught usually, especially if you grew up in Christian culture, desires are bad, desires are of the enemy, desires are selfish, right?
Mhm.
God gives us the higher power, the universe, however you want to describe it, doesn't matter
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
We are born innately with a purpose, with a desire. So focusing on what are the things that makes my heart squeeze in a good way that I get excited
Mm,
about, right? And
yeah.
it's okay that you don't know, like, and maybe you can think of like, well, do you love to read People magazines? Do you love to read Vogue magazines? Do you love to watch certain YouTube channels? When you have some downtimes, what are you sneaking and doing that,
Mhm.
like, are you watching runway shows? Are you watching cute cat videos? Are you like, what is it that you're doing that's bringing you joy and pleasure and relaxation, laughter and fun? Like, and then assess what are the elements of this that why do I like this?
Mhm.
And you start constructing very slowly, but it takes time.
I think that's a great point because so often I don't think we think about what we actually desire and want. I mean, I know that sounds odd. I think some people are better at it than others, but I know for me, that's a hard. I remember when you and some other therapists had asked me, like my actual therapist, you're not my therapist, but some actual therapists that I would see had asked me, like, well, you need to find some, what do you like? I'm like, I don't know. You know, I don't really dislike a whole lot of things, but I also don't have anything that I'm just obsessed with, like, I'm not obsessed with any one thing, and so it took me quite a while I was like, "Yeah, everything's fine, I enjoy most things." So it's still it's still something for me that I'm like, "What? What do I want?" And one of the ways I've been practicing it, which sounds so simple, but it's like, "What do you want to eat?" That's the most annoying question. And I know, like, you hear, like, couples talk about getting in fights about this a lot, but one of the ways I've been trying to practice this is instead of just being like, "I don't know," I will sit and think for a second. I'm like, "Can you give me 5 minutes? Give me
Mhm.
5 minutes." It's like it takes me that long to figure out what I want to eat, and sometimes longer, and I'll have to sit alone and go, like, "What actually sounds good to me right now?" And
Yeah.
that's the process for me is, like, even doing that. I've been doing that for, like, a year, and I'm
Mhm.
still like, "Oh, I need some time alone to figure out what I want."
Well, the way I describe it is it's like a part of us that should have been growing all alone, but wasn't allowed to grow. It's like growing an arm, right? So it
Oh,
takes
yeah.
energy and effort and time for the arm to form because
Mhm.
it's not like the arm is already formed and you're just learning how to use it again. You're literally forming a part of yourself that never got to develop. And
Mhm.
that is an understanding of self and being able to express needs and wants and desires. So yeah, in my group, and I tell the people in my group, like, it's literally as simple as what flavor coffee do I want? What kind of creamer do I want? What color underwear do I want to wear? Like, just learning how to create pleasure and focus on desire in every part of your day, all the micro moments of your day. What do I want to have for lunch today? Where would I like my partner to take me? Telling your partner you want them to take you out on a date, like, to
Mhm.
just thinking about and expressing desire. And it's through these micro moments that you start to build some momentum so that the bigger things can come into reality for you.
That's really good. And when we think about like relationships or, for a lot of people, it's family dynamics, right? So, say you're in this process of not only healing from the past, but shifting some of your mindset, working towards building your future. You're in this stage, like there's a lot happening in your brain. There's a lot of capacity that you're having to dedicate to doing this kind of work. But then let's say it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or a holiday that you celebrate. And I'm saying this knowing that the holidays are coming up, and you go back to your internal family system structure. How on earth do you maintain what progress you have made when in that system again? So, like, how do you not reenact the old dynamics and set the boundaries?
So for years, I could, I had to limit the amount of, well, tell the truth, the whole journey. The beginning,
Mhm.
I couldn't. I would revert back to my old self and my old family system, and I didn't have the strength to set boundaries and limit the time that I was with them.
Mm.
And so I stayed stuck and confused and tumbling around for a very long time because when I kind of created what felt to me like my real self, a secret self that they didn't know anything about, I would kind of started off dividing it that way. But then when I would be with them, I couldn't be this other self that I was when I was with my friends. But the more I worked on myself and the more strength and momentum I gained, then I learned how to limit the time. I still couldn't really do it when I was with them, but I did get strong enough to set boundaries about how much time I allowed myself to be around them. And then, and for a period of time, I wasn't around them at all. In fact, I moved to the other side of the world, and
Yeah.
not intentionally just for that, but it did. I think it was more unconscious than conscious at the time, but I knew I needed a lot of separation to really be able
Mhm.
to like get myself to a place where I was fully solidified in me. And
Mhm.
now I'm to a place where it doesn't cost me anything to be around them. I don't get hung up at all, but it's been a very, I mean, again, this has been 2 decades worth of time that I've been
Mhm.
on this journey.
I mean, what I hear when you say that is it depends on the situation and the family, of course, because some people's journey might not have much to do with their own family system. But I guess I go, even if your quote trauma is not from your family, you likely were still showing up in the protective trauma response when around them. So even if your trauma wasn't from them, you showed up in that way. And if you're now showing up in a different way, that's going to be a shift in those relationships because especially if you don't live near them, you come back after 6 months and let's say you've been on this path of journey, that doesn't make sense, journey of like healing and you come back and you're different. I think it's going to create like oh, what's going on?
Yeah, so if you have any little thing in there that still needs them to accept it to you or
Mhm.
approve of you, if you're still trying to seek some validation from them, then you're not you're not gonna be able to be the version of yourself that's not pleasing to them.
Yeah. And is there like a script or a reframe or some sort of like what do we say? Let's say I'm on this journey and I'm going back to be around family for a week or so at the holidays and I don't, want to cause a rift, but I also want to kind of give them an idea of what I'm doing and set a boundary. What's like a script we can say without offending somebody that kind of lets people know, "Hey, I'm on this journey, but also don't cross this boundary."
Good question. Okay, so first, this is not something you say, but you can begin a month before, a week before. The version of me they need me to be has nothing to do with me.
Hmm.
Say that again. The version of me that my parents need me to be or want me to be has nothing to do with me,
Yeah.
right? They're trying to create this Rockwell picture because that's what they feel like they need to be safe about their own story that they've created in their mind. It doesn't actually have anything to do with me.
Mhm.
So that helps me not take it so personally, right? Even though it is very personal. I mean, it's biological. We want our parents to love and approve and
Yeah.
accept. accept us. So there's nothing wrong with needing and wanting that. And there's a shit ton of grief that comes accepting that that will never happen.
Mhm.
But once you accept it, you're free.
Yeah.
And then showing up, if they're like, oh, I can't believe your hair looks like that, or I can't believe you're wearing that. What are you doing? Like, then you can just say, hey, I want to enjoy our time together. I don't want to talk about the way I look. You don't have to be mean. You can just say, I don't want to talk about the way I look, or I don't want you to discipline my children. I will. If you have a problem with what they're doing, you need to let me know. Please do not address them directly about their behavior.
Mhm.
Just say very calmly what the boundary is and be prepared to leave if they're not going to honor it.
Yeah. Which is hard. I know, especially for somebody like me who tends to historically have been a people pleaser and not want to I don't even want to say confront, but be assertive is probably a better word. Now, I'm not there anymore, but let's go back to years ago. If you were to tell me as my therapist to say that to like somebody in my family, I would go, "Hell, I'm not
You're
saying that to my
crazy.
You are crazy. How mean is that?" And it's funny because now I'm like, well, that's not mean at all. But to set that clear of a boundary in one sentence, like everything in me is like, ooh,
Right,
I
right.
don't think I can say that. Now I could, and I have found ways to make that authentically me. And, I'm like, no, I could say it with a smile, but I'm like, but I'm serious. Come to me.
Yeah, I couldn't say it for a long time either. And someplace I tell clients to start is in fact, I've got one doing this right now. I just want you to observe. Don't say a word. Just observe. Notice the manipulation and the side comments. Like I know you've noticed it before, but I want you to notice it with like investigative eyes this time. Act like you're
Hmm.
me, observing how this family is operating and the things that they're saying or not saying to each other. So that's one thing that works is just if you don't feel like you're ready to have a clear statement like that,
Yeah.
you can still kind of keep your protective shell up and just observe what's happening so you can report back to your therapist.
Hmm.
So that's one way to handle it. Another way to handle it is determine what the emotional age of your parents is. So when you
Ooh,
see them acting the way they're acting, are they acting like a 13-year-old? Are they acting like a 10-year-old? Are they acting like a 16-year-old? And just there's something again that helps you not take it as personal when you start observing them as the child that they're behaving like instead of the adult that you wish that they were.
that's a really good one. Yeah. And because I would imagine too, that also helps you in how you're going to respond, like how I would respond to an adult versus a 22-year-old versus 16-year-old. Like those are going to be different.
Uh-huh. And I actually had a client who did this. He was terrified of his father. His father was very I mean, at the end of the day, he just really wanted his dad to be proud of him and love him. And so
Hmm.
he just wouldn't say what he needed to say and wouldn't, anyway. So his dad, he started talking about something and his dad's started, oh, son, dismissing him. And he was like, and I just immediately saw this 13-year-old and I looked at him and said, Dad, get over here and sit down. You need to hear this. Like a parent would tell a 13-year-old. And you know what his dad did? He walked over there and sat down like a 13.
Wow.
And so he's like, oh
Wow.
my God, you're right. He is. He's just 13 years old. I was like, "Yeah." So it really was effective for him and like getting out of that power dynamic, feeling
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
these big, and you
Hmm.
still see yourself as this little child where it's actually the opposite. You've actually emotionally outgrown your parents.
And how do you determine the difference between I'm oscillating between I'm making some progress and kind of falling back into like I think there's that natural anytime you're working on an improvement, right? You kind of get a little bit better and then you fall back a little bit and then you get a bit better and then you fall back versus okay, I actually need some additional support now. Like how do you tell the difference between those two things?
Right. That's great. Kind of what I go back to in my mind is it's so powerful when we get out of the performance mindset because a performance
Mhm.
mindset requires perfectionism. It requires getting it right. It requires you pushing and pushing and pushing until it's whereas if you come back to I'm just chipping away the layers to find me and I understand that this is a journey I'm now on for the rest of my life and you begin noticing do I need to take a nap? I take a nap. Do I need to push myself to journal and do something else, then I do that. Again, I know that a lot of people are like, I have no idea what I need. And it's okay. You are going to practice with it and play with it
Mm.
and sit for a moment and think, what do I need? And it'll be here. It's not going to be here. It's going to be here. So just
So like
pulling
you're
your mind into your body. Like, is my body tired? Does it need rest? Does my body need movement? Do I need a hug? Do I need nourishment? Do I need food? What do I need? It's like, pay attention here.
and for those like listening, not watching, here being like your chest, your heart,
Yes.
your
Your heart area
okay.
in your body. Your body will tell you, not your mind, your
Mm.
body tells you. And you're going to get it wrong. And that's why, if it's not about a performance and like getting to a destination, but about an uncovering and discovering of who you are, then
Mhm.
it's okay that it's going to take time, and it's okay that you're going to fuck up, and it's okay that it's going to be forwards and backwards and this. And I know that it's frustrating. And for me, at least, it was so frustrating because I was like, I've already lost so much time. I've
Mhm.
already lost so much time to pain and depression and being married to an asshole, and bet like I've lost so much. I don't want to lose another second. And so for me, I understand that mindset, and I understand feeling like if I don't get this right, I'm just setting myself back, until I learned that that's the mindset that was setting me back. And that's so hard to give
Yeah.
up that performance, to
Yeah.
give up that control and let it be messy, because life is
Mhm.
messy. And when you can feel safe, you know you've arrived to feeling safe when you can allow yourself to be messy and it's okay.
So is that the way you say we kind of assess if we're making progress? Like little ways that you might know you're making some progress. It's I'm okay being messy.
Yeah, that's one of them. Another one is, are you getting good sleep? Do you generally have good digestion, or do you struggle with food settling in your body and your stomach, or do you tend to struggle, if you are still having a lot of digestion issues, body issues, then that is typically a sign that there's still a lot of intense stress in your body. So that those are, if you're not getting great sleep, if your breath quality, if
Mhm.
are startled easily, like if you jump
Mhm.
scare quite easily. These are signs that you are still struggling. You're not there. You don't feel safe just being in,
Mhm.
right? You feel guilty setting boundaries, saying no. You don't know how to play. You don't know how
Mhm.
to
Those are
just
good
relax,
ones.
laugh with your
Yeah.
friends and just be. Again, we typically want to be judgmental of ourselves. Well, I'm not doing that right. I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it right.
Mhm.
That's performance mindset.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that you're not doing it right. It just means you don't feel safe. And my heart breaks for you that you don't feel safe.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
about creating safety in your body. And the signals that you feel safe are that you are able to now laugh with your girlfriends. You are able to go out and have a night out while your partner stays at home with the kids, and you don't feel guilty about it, because you know
Mhm.
that it's part of life, right? You're getting decent sleep, your digestion is improving, you're eating and you're wanting nutritious things. You're not craving things that are not nutritious for your body.
Yeah.
Um, these are little signs that you're beginning to create authentic life for yourself.
And just a side question, a lot of what you're talking about in repairing the past and also building for the future is body related. And I'm
Mhm.
just curious, did you ever have any like skepticism and like, I guess as a therapist going through training, I did not learn much about somatic healing, the integration of my body. And to me, I'm like, why are we not talking about that as much in Western culture? Like, I
Yeah,
mean, we are more now, but just briefly, if you could say, like, did you ever have that skepticism? And what would you say to others who have such skepticism around the somatic healing
right.
process?
I had a lot of skepticism, and it's because, I mean, it's a whole another episode, but basically, when we've been through extensive trauma, our mind and our body disconnect from each other, and we tend to go to our mind or our body. So many of us go to our
Mm,
mind and we overthink and we overanalyze and we process and we're like numb in our body, and we think, think, think. And
mm-hmm,
so it just feels safer I'm just going to read and research my way through this. Right. So I wanted to keep it there. I wanted to keep it in my mind and my research and in my training and my school and my degrees. And I believe many people in the profession are in that same space. Well, we just are going to stay. And it's not that there's not value in understanding it. Of course, there's a lot of value in understanding it. And for me, my healing journey, I needed to understand it before I felt safe enough being it and doing it. But trauma happens in the body. Our body is what feels unsafe. Our body, our stress responses are activated from our body, not from our mind. So it makes sense
Mm-hmm.
that our body is where the healing, the restorative journey needs to be. Makes me think of a video I show when I do training for therapists. I show a video of a cheetah attacking an impala, and something distracts the cheetah and it runs off, and the impala is laying there. It looks dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see its stomach start to pump. And then you see its whole nervous system, its whole body is shaking head to toe. This impala is not thinking, it's releasing energy in its body. It's recovering
Mm-hmm.
from the trauma of being captured by the cheetah in its body, and it's releasing the
Mm-hmm.
energy of it. And as soon as the energy releases, it sits up and then it just runs off like nothing ever happened. Right. And this
Mm-hmm.
is essentially what we're doing is we're releasing energy from our body through breath work, through movement, through grounding, through
Mm-hmm.
yoga practice, whatever movement sensations, so for if you're an anxious person, you need calmness and stillness in your body, grounding into the earth, doing breathing exercises. If you are a more numb, depressed, frozen person like I was, where you're so disconnected, you're not even touching anxiety, you need movement in your body. So in the morning, I do meditation and then I will hum really loud to feel the vibration in my system and wake my system back up. Or sometimes I just stand up and like squirm around a little bit and just get the energy flowing in my body because it wants to just depress and stay in
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. Different episode because I have so many. We need to talk about somatic healing, body integration things. And that's so good. So, for others listening, how do you know what a good provider is? I've had a lot of not ideal therapists, and I am a therapist and I know what to look for, and it's still really hard to
Yes.
find one. So, what are green flags, red flags?
So first of all, they are talking from day one about safety, about pacing, about regulation. They're calming. You feel the calming presence from them, but they're not asking you details about your story. They're not getting into what happened. These are all sensationalizing, like, because healing doesn't happen in you retelling your story. Healing happens in you reconnecting with your body and the emotions stored in
Mm,
your body. So they're
yeah.
going to have language around safety, around pacing, around regulation. They're going to express to you the training that they've had and that they are clear on the process and steps on how to move forward. Red flags are, again, they are talking about, wanting to hear your story. They seem really interested in your story. They're wanting to get you to a breakthrough. You can kind of feel this destination mindset. I'm going to get you from here to there, that you're going to get to this healing. Whereas a true trauma therapist understands there is no destination to get to. It is just recalibrating to safety within you.
And actually makes a lot of sense thinking about people I've seen in the past.
And a question you can ask, how do you ensure safety when you're working with trauma? You can
That
just
I, as the client, would ask my therapist.
client can ask, hey, how do you ensure safety when you're working with trauma? If they
Mm,
fumble around on how to answer that for you or give you any kind of indication that they're not worried about safety, then that's a no. They haven't been trained. They don't understand.
that's so helpful. And the last thing I want to ask is when we think about, you've given a lot of great tools, but as we think about like the next week or so, what are some things we can do on a daily, weekly, routine basis without going deeper, right, with a therapist
Mhm.
to sort of do that repair and that build?
Yeah. So a big key is building consistency. So a lack of safety is so connected to self-abandonment. And so reconnecting to not abandoning yourself, it means having a really consistent self-care routine. And that can be really, really, really challenging for somebody who's chronically self-abandoned. So even if it's just 5 minutes a day, put your feet in the grass or go on some sort of walk. Like I said, when you first wake up, like shake your body, hum, gargle water, do something to feel the vibration in your body, just doing something where you are intentionally calibrating and regulating. Like YouTube has so many resources. You can just put in, calming meditation. You can put in breath work for 10 minutes. So you're going to get a video on if you need something to guide you. YouTube is the
Mhm.
resource of meditation channel I love is called Master Your Mind. They release a 20-minute meditation every day. It's totally free. You can just sit down and do that. My point is do something to regulate your
Mhm.
system daily. Hot bath, whatever it is. It can be for
Mhm.
5 minutes, it can be for an hour, however much time you have, doesn't matter. Just do something to intentionally regulate your system. And then do something to practice who you want to be. Do you want to
Mm.
be a woman who sets boundaries and is more assertive? Practice it. Practice it with your partner, practice it with your kids, practice it at work, practice it with a friend. Just pick a time and practice it.
Mhm.
You want to be somebody who has really fun friendships, then send a funny meme to a friend. Just practice what you want every day as often
Mhm.
as possible. And if you miss a day, don't freak out about it. It's okay. We're on a journey, but
Mhm.
practicing what you want creates it in your life. Instead of waiting till you're a version of yourself before you think you can be it, start practicing it now so that you're ready to be her when it's time.
It's really good. And both of those things seem doable. Like they don't seem overwhelming.
Just practicing. And this is what, like, these little steps compound over time till all of a sudden you're like, wow, I am a version of myself I didn't think I could get to. And I think what's so hard about trauma is, like I said, it's so self-abandoning in nature, it creates self-abandonment in nature that we are just waiting until we are a version of ourselves who can be her
Mhm.
versus thinking that we can build her slowly over time.
Yeah. And when you think about building her slowly over time and making these small movements towards reconnection, to me, that feels so much less overwhelming than this idea that I have to have a breakthrough and make this huge shift in my life. And next month, I want to be the perfect version of me. And, that is a great hope, I guess. But also, I've never experienced a change in that way. And so
Right.
it is pretty overwhelming.
It's a fantasy mindset. It's a rescue.
Yeah.
You're waiting for something to rescue you, which is
Hmm.
normal. If you're a child who is in a shitty situation, you want somebody to rescue you, and it's hard to get out of the mindset of waiting for something to rescue. And so we just keep waiting for that magical something that's going to happen to where it's okay for us to start being her versus beginning to slowly build her now. You rescue yourself that way.
I love it. Can you tell everyone briefly about the group that you have and why I think everyone should join it? I did it. I think it was so impactful and it goes into so much of what, you talked about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 60-day nervous system reset group. And basically, I have a very curated system that I walk people through. I do it in my one-on-one sessions as well. It's called Courageous Living, where it's basically where we clean out what we need to clean out from the past, and then we build a grid for how to create a future. And so it's a 60 days of us doing some really intentional work. And so it's me teaching you like cognitively and helping you understand what you need, but also giving you somatic tools in each of the 8 lessons that you can then use and apply. So we do like tapping, we do breath work, we do guided meditations. We have lots of different things that we do. So you walk away with a toolbox full of resources to support yourself as you start building the life you want to live.
I love it. And it's
And I
so
love it.
good.
Yeah, and I think group work is so powerful because it's just something really cool about watching other people be in the same phase you're in, or maybe one step ahead
Hmm.
or one step behind you. It makes you feel less alone and
Hmm.
like you can do it. And so you're cheering each other on as you're going through that process.
So good.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on again and sharing about so much and so many more topics that I like wrote down. I was like, oh, we need to come back to this because this is really good. Just, yeah, thank you for being here and helping us understand trauma and healing our past, as well as like what does building the future look like in the midst of all that. So thank you.
absolutely.
And last final question before we go, what is something ridiculous or relatable that you do?
Okay. This is so hard. Okay. I hate yoga. I want to like it. I get the cute outfits and I sign up. And when the instructor makes you do the chaturanga, like like over and over again. I just want to say, like, I just did it twice for you. And they just do it over and over. Like, and then you do one other movement and you go back to chaturanga. No, thank you. I can't do yoga. I'm
I
just,
I think that's such a good one and so perfect too, because like with how much body work you talk about, and
I
then
know I should be the yoga queen.
I'm the same way though. I like Pilates, but yoga, and I like just stretching. But yoga, I'm like, are we working out or are we stretching? Because I'm not doing either. And unless you're doing hot yoga, and then it just stinks and it's miserable. And like, actually, we took yoga classes
We
together in
did
Texas.
hot yoga, yeah, a long time ago. I mean, I will say I do feel better if I can make myself stay. I
Hmm.
notice my body feels better after, like,
Hmm.
freer, I guess is a better word for it. But I've just gotten to the point where it's not worth it to me to be frustrated for an hour.
Hmm.
Now I can go to a yoga stretching class. Yes, I love Pilates, but just a traditional yoga class, no, thank you. You're going to make me do chaturanga 500,000 times, and no, I'm not doing it.
And you're gonna hear so many farts.
Yeah.
I I will never forget the yoga classes I've gone to. I'm like, are we just okay? Everybody just like the one time in society in America where we can all just fart and nobody cared.
You just let it go and nobody reacts.
I don't want to smell that. And also, I can't stop laughing. I'm a grown woman, and every
Same,
time somebody's
same.
farting, I'm
Yes.
laughing.
Maybe that's another one about me. There is nothing funnier to me than potty humor. And so I just can't not laugh. Like I
That's
just,
so good. I love it. Oh man.
but
Well,
anyway, that's me.
thank you so much. That's a great one. It
Yeah,
was so good to talk to you today.
you do. See ya.
A huge thank you to Janice for being with us. If today hit home, go check out Janice's Courageous Living group. It's a nervous system reset designed to help high-functioning people finally feel safe enough to receive the life they've already built. It is self-paced and it's always available. You'll get on-demand lessons, guided somatic tools, reflection prompts, and community support you can tap into anytime. You can sign up at the link in the show notes below. You can also follow Janice on YouTube and Instagram at the.trauma.teacher. I also wanted to let you know that I will be taking a very short break around the holidays, and I'm very excited to share that as we come back after the new year, I have an incredible series that I'm so excited about where we are talking about the bothness of faith, how people hold belief and doubt, tradition and change, how there are things from our faith teachings that we love and hold so dearly, yet also want to change. I'm going to be talking to some incredible guests like Rob Bell, Linda K. Klein, Brian Recker, and many others. So make sure you are following the show, that you are subscribed so that you don't miss an episode. If this episode resonated with you, it would mean the world to me if you could support the show and help it grow. First, please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, because your words help new listeners to find us. Second, share the episode with someone who might need it, because that's how this community grows, through real people, real stories, and honest conversations shared from one person to another. Finally, make sure you follow the show so you never miss an episode. Just tap the little plus sign or follow button on the main show page. These really are the most impactful things that you can do for the podcast. So thank you again for listening. And this week, take some time to recognize what in your life is full of bothness. And remember, it's okay to feel all the things, because so many times in life, it isn't either or. It's both.